Hey everyone, welcome to One Mic Stand. I'm your host and coach, Vanessa Fine, and I want to welcome psychic, intuitive, and spiritual teacher, James Bene.
Hello.
Hi James.
Hello, how are you?
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's so nice having you here. I'm so excited you're here. We have a lot to talk about today. And actually, as a result, normally I just kind of go off the fly and with my questions, but because we have so much to cover today, I actually wrote them down. So forgive me for reading off the cards, but we have some important things to go through today.
Yes.
Okay,
I'm ready.
Okay, perfect. So we always start the show with the same question, which is, tell me about the worst date that you've ever had.
Oh my gosh. There's just so many.
That's what everyone says. There's so many. That's
There's
not good.
so
But we're here to teach. We're here to teach. So
We're here to teach. Well, I think the worst experience on a date, quote unquote, was when I was kidnapped across state lines. Yeah, by the person.
This is the second time someone has told me something back to back where I'm just like, whoa, like shots fired out with a bang. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, continue.
Yeah, so I was in college. I met this guy, and we kind of hit it off, and we were like, okay, let's drive back to my apartment. So we went back to my place. It was like after dinner, kind of. And I don't know why, but I remember throwing on my pajamas and being like, oh, I'm going to get comfortable. And just we were chilling on the couch. And so I put my pajamas on and everything. And then he was like, oh, I need to move my car. And I was like, oh, it's really difficult. Let me come and help you find a spot. So we go into the driveway, we move the car, I get in, I'm wearing my pajamas, and he just locks the doors and takes off. Next thing I know, we're on the highway, and I'm like, what's happening? I really thought I was kidnapped, but I really thought it was really the end of it for me.
Did you, forgive me for not knowing the age or date, but did you have cell phones at this time?
Yeah, we had cell phones. And so my roommate was sleeping in his room. And I remember calling him being like, hi, so just so you know, I'm okay, but I think I'm headed. And I'm like, where are we headed? And he's like, Virginia. I was like, Virginia. So I'll let you know when I get there. Yeah, it was really weird. Moral of the story, we went 2 states over. I was in school in Washington, D.C. at the time. So we went from D.C. to Maryland into Virginia where this person lived. And it was this whole weird, kind of serial killer vibe all of a sudden. And yeah, luckily we get to his place and it just was uneventful. It was the worst kidnapping ever. I just was sitting on his couch bored out of my mind. So I was
What was his goal here?
I don't know. It was just I really wanted to come back to my place. And so I figured this is the way to do it. It was weird. So.
Oh, wait, and how long had you been dating?
Oh, I just met him.
Wait, this wasn't your. Oh, wait, was this your first date?
This was our first date. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, wait, and your first instinct was to call your roommate and not the police.
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
To say I'm okay. I'm still alive. I think this person's normal. I have no idea what's happening, but I'm going somewhere to Virginia, and I'll let you know. And the funniest aspect is, you have to just go with the flow. And I was like, wow, I put myself in I'm sure many people put themselves in a lot of dangerous situations when they were younger and dating, and I definitely did. But, we ended up watching a movie. It was really nothing. It was just very weird. But the funny aspect was the next day when I was like, you have to drive me back to, campus. You have to drive me back to, my place. And he's like, well, I have to go to work. And I'm like, I don't care if you have to go to work. And so he's like, well, I'll take you to work, and then I have to stop there and do something really quickly and just wait in the car, and then I'll take you home. And I was like, oh, my God. Mind you, I'm still in my pajamas. And so we drive to work, which was a construction site, where he just pulled over, parked, left for an hour. And I'm like, where is this person? I had to get out of his car in my pajamas and slippers, walk up to him, and all these like construction workers and basically embarrass him in front of all these people and be like, you need to take me home. Like I caused like a scene on purpose, and the poor man was so embarrassed that he finally got in his car and drove me home.
I
And
mean,
that
I
was it.
wouldn't call him poor man so much as like poor kidnapper.
That's true. Poor, maybe serial killer, maybe not. I
And
don't know.
were your future dates like any first date in the future? Did you meet in public in like a safer setting?
Yes.
Okay.
I think I learned from that because at that point my roommate had called 911 and was like, my roommate's been kidnapped. I have no idea who he's with, and I think he's going to Virginia. It just was this like really idiotic story. And I think the moral of it is just don't drink that much on a first date.
Right.
To have your wits like about you.
Right.
You know?
Were you teaching at the time? I'm guessing not, right? Because I
No.
mean, I would imagine if you were telling this story to, let's say, not me, someone would
Yes.
say, "Didn't you see that coming?" or something like that. You know what I mean?
Of course. No, I had no idea. No, I was in college. I went to performing arts school. So yeah, I was not in this particular mindset.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's not at all what I was expecting you to say. So that was a great story. Thank you for
You're
sharing.
welcome. Yes.
Okay, so let's get into it because, as I mentioned, we have a lot of ground to cover here. So, in regards to dating or love, what would you say is the number one question that you get as a psychic intuitive?
Um, Off the top of my head, one of the biggest questions people ask is, does she love me? Do they love me? Does he love me? Right?
Oh, so it's coming from someone who already has a partner in their life.
Yes.
I guess we should split it up from those who do have a partner
Okay.
and those who are single. So let's start with the partner.
Okay. So if someone has a partner, or it's even just they've been dating for a week, it doesn't really, it can fall into any of that. It's the biggest question is, do they think about me? Do they love me? All of that. And this question oftentimes comes from an insecurity because their partner isn't texting them back, or they're being ghosted, or all of these things that tend to happen. And it's a really hard question to answer because the truth is they are thinking about you, but they're probably thinking about how not to think about you. They're probably thinking about how to release you. And so no one wants to hear that. And so I think that when it comes to being a psychic or a spiritual teacher, it's important for me to, kind of put sometimes my intuition aside and speak just from the heart, and maybe kind of guide the person to ask a different question. Like, is he the right one for me? Is she the right one for me? Or, but I think the need for love and the need for validation tricks a lot of us up. And so we just want to know, even if they're not calling us, that they're desperately in love with us, or something horrible must have happened because they're not reaching out the way that they used to, or, all of that. And I think for people who don't have relationships, the big question I get is, will I find love? Is that in the stars for me? That's probably the most normal, right? Is, do you feel this is going to happen? And I also have a responsibility as a teacher and a mentor to, give an honest answer. But also, if I feel that there are other issues or emotional blocks that someone is facing who is asking that question, maybe guiding them in a different direction as well. Like, okay, like, sure, this can be available to you, but I feel that maybe there's a journey of self-love that needs to happen. And so people just want to know, is it going to come in? And if I truly feel it and I get that feeling that, yes, this is available, then that will be my answer. I will answer honestly.
And if for that particular person you actually don't see a future with love, are you upfront about that as well?
I would say that I would never tell anyone, no, you're going to be alone and sad. I would never say that. However, sometimes I do feel that there's time and space in between them finding someone and the present moment. And again, I would guide that person to really start to form a relationship with themselves, or really start to connect with friends more, or maybe put themselves out more than they are in the moment. Maybe it's time just to have fun and date, and it's not time to settle down with someone just yet. So I think that beyond my own intuitive gifts, the reality is that there is someone for everyone. And I think that most people could probably go out and find someone tomorrow if they really, really needed it. And so some people do, you know.
Yeah. And then for those who are in the relationship, because it's funny because so I, as a dating coach, have to deal with that myself. So when my client, goes on a date and, for example, I recently went through the program with a guy who was actively dating. And one time after a date, he would say, well, her communication is slowing down or she's really busy. That's the number one thing. She's really busy. She said she'll, she's in school, she's studying, she'll get back to me when she can, that kind of thing. And one of the things I pride myself on as a dating coach is being blunt and honest. And I always say, look, this is my opinion, do with it what you'd like, but no one's that busy or everyone's just as busy, but the reality is you make time for what's important to you. And whenever I've had to have that conversation with a client, I always get a message the next day saying, yeah, she ended it, or however long after. And I say, I preface in advance of, I'm going to be honest with you, so do with it what you want. But I know personally, as someone who comes to you for guidance or I would almost want to know, but at the same time, like, for example, if I was coming to you as a single person and saying, do you see love in my future? If it really was a no, I'd probably want to know to have a backup plans, maybe. But I could see how that could be, you could be put in a really awkward position. And also then, let's say, for example, you told me no, as tough as that would be to hear, part of me would almost be like, well, is that actually really true? Because I'm only however old. We have a long time here. So have you ever had someone push and just be like, no, like I really need to know, you can be honest with me? And have you, or you haven't gone there?
Most depend on the person. I guess
Okay.
the people that I work with, they value honesty, and I always preface, love readings are difficult. They
Yeah.
really are. And there's a lot of ways, I guess, psychics can get, astrology and numerology are ways to kind of look into someone's chart and kind of see if it's there, So there are other methods, I think that I always pride myself on honestly channeling what I feel and saying it. I think it's more about how I say it. And I think also being a life coach and myself, you learn the tools and the ways to communicate with someone from a loving place, and sometimes spirit is like, look, it's not right now. It doesn't mean it's not right.
That's what I was just going to say, that, one of the things I love so much about working with you is, yes, the way you do say it, but also you're 100% right that it's not all about love. And there are things that you do need to work on in between, because the fact is there needs to be space for it. And if there's anything coming in that's blocking you, that you really need to hone in on, because I always tell my clients, look, the fact is when you're getting into a relationship, marriage, whatever it is, you need to be able to be in a place where you can take on other people's feelings. And if you're not in that place, to your point, then that is what you're referring to of, well, maybe in the future, but these are actually the concrete things you need to work on right now. So that's what I love so much about your reading, and I totally understand the types of positions you must be in. I've seen it firsthand with you when someone got a reading where they were hoping it would say one thing, not even necessarily having to do with love, but, let's say they were hoping for a career change and instead they got the love card. And I remember her being kind of disappointed, and I was thinking, well, she got a love card. Like most people, that's what they want. But so yeah, you just tell it like you see it, basically, I would say, right?
Yeah, it's difficult for me to kind of put spirit or put my gifts in like a filter. It's whatever kind of intuitively am guided to tell that person. And it might not be exactly what they want to hear. Someone can ask about love, and it's like, whoa, let's talk about the bigger elephant in the room. You know, that's more
Yeah.
important. And it's really whatever you need to hear for your greater good. That's what I really try to channel for someone, because you know what I do versus what a psychic in a window or on a boardwalk or is very different. You know, it's a different reality than someone that's doing love readings and things like that.
That's a good point. And yeah, like I said, I do think you put, I don't even want to say spin because that makes it sound like it's not true, but you are all encompassing and focus on everything that the person needs to work on. And sometimes it comes in and it is really specific. But when they have these specific questions, especially, and look, the other thing is sometimes when people ask the question, they know in their heart what the answer really is. Like, with the example you gave about, well, they've been ghosting me, do they love me? And it's like, sometimes they're asking because they know, but they don't want to be the one to admit the answer why, and they need to hear it from someone else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Most people know the answers deep down if they really are brave enough to to listen to themselves, you know? And I think that there's also this question of love. And I'm like, everyone's, oh, does he love me or she love me, or am I going to find love? You know, there is a saying, and Tina Turner, said it best, what's love got to do with it? There are plenty of people that will love you that don't want to be around you anymore. There's plenty of people that will fall in love with you and you'll fall in love with that it still won't work out, because there's a lot of other factors beyond love that solidify relationships. Love is really a very strangely kind of a small aspect to it. You need friendship, compatibility, trust, emotional availability, which is so huge in what I do. So many people come to me for love and relationship, and I see a pattern in them where they just give themselves to unemotional people or people that are just not emotionally available. And so I find that, wow, you really need to break that pattern and that cycle, because sure, excuse me, an unemotionally available man or woman, they could love you very much, but they're still emotionally unavailable. So they're not going to fulfill the need that you have for love, because we feel love through emotions. And so if someone loves you a lot, but they don't express it and they hold it back, how would you know? And so sometimes we have to rework the question, does he love me? Sometimes is this the right relationship? Is this the person that I can grow with? Is this the person that I'm going to spend my life with? In and out of love, right? Because sometimes you really despise your partner for a week and then you love them again. And then you know what I mean?
Right.
It ebbs and flows.
To your point about the loving an emotionally unavailable person, in the research that I've done, the common denominator often seems to be that it's because that person themselves is emotionally unavailable. Do you find that too?
Often.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Often.
And do you have any recommendations for how to break that pattern?
That's the interesting thing, is a lot of times it's broken through relationships, through someone being fed up with the fact that they aren't in fulfilled relationships and, decide to seek help, or a relationship comes in and it just knocks them over. It's unhealed and unhinged, and there's a lot of heartbreak and heartache. And people come in sometimes not to be a partner forever, but just to break you open
Yeah.
and walk away.
Yeah.
I believe all relationships are divine connections. Even those that hurt us, I think, are super spiritual, because they're our biggest teachers. The people who hurt us are our biggest teachers.
100%.
So we learn through relationships what a bad relationship is and what a good relationship is.
And that goes for almost any type of relationship too, I find. Yeah. Okay. Do you believe that finding love is our fate / up to the universe, or is it our choices that we make?
In my experience with that, because I toil over that a lot in my own spiritual journey and just in spirituality in general, I guess, like destiny versus choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe there is destiny that does exist, and there are things that we are just simply meant to have and receive and experience. And then there are other things that maybe aren't in our destiny cards, but that we absolutely can have. And I think that it's both. And so, because of that, to kind of piggyback the first question, it's like if I don't feel it, who am I to say that it won't happen? Because it could be a choice. You can absolutely choose to meet someone and fall in love with them, and sometimes that's the right way. And then sometimes, no, I do feel like a divine pull, like, no, this person, I see this person, it's meant for you, it's a soulmate, or a twin flame. It feels like spirit needs to bring you two together. And I have found that sometimes when we have soul contracts with people, they kind of will come back to us in other lifetimes as soulmates, or as, actually, it doesn't really even have to be like a partnership, a romantic partnership. It could also be like a mom and son situation. But you have souls that will travel with you and will come in as different characters to help you grow and heal and learn. And who best to do that than, a partner,
Yeah.
someone that you'll spend your life with.
Well, and you've given me examples about how when you've felt compelled to tell a client you need to go to this salsa class, and they've met their partner at the salsa class. Yeah, I remember you telling me those stories. So yeah, I totally see both sides. And if you feel a calling and you feel strongly about it, even if it's not necessarily that person, maybe it's going to be your new best friend. Like, I think it's important to just be really open when you're getting these readings, if you agree.
I agree. And honestly, if you work with a psychic, again, and if you do, those that are listening, make sure you do your research, make sure it's a person with real gifts and who is grounded, who has some reviews, or who you could talk to people who might have, been with them. But you always take it with a grain of salt. I even tell my clients, you take what vibes with you, and the rest you can throw in the garbage until you don't have to, and that's why I record things and I let them record their sessions, because they can go back and re-listen, but if something doesn't make sense, why bother, focusing on it? My track record is pretty good. Like, things that I say a lot of times do kind of come back around to the person. I think that timing is very difficult for any like psychic or an intuitive, because spirit doesn't say, in 2023 of September 18th, at 5:30, this is when this person, I wish I had that gift, or, I'd be a different person. But its timing is very, very difficult. And so how I can kind of work with timing would be astrology or numerology, to kind of also feel like, oh, what would make sense, or when in your chart do I feel or see that this is a better time for that person to be here, So yeah, does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. And then one thing I was going to say, going back to the last question, which you reminded me, is when I was saying before that usually when people ask questions, they know the answer. I find that in my coaching, typically when someone is already dating someone. However, if someone is coming to you who is single and truly doesn't know, and they ask you, like, am I going to find love? When am I going to find love? That's a different story, because they actually genuinely don't know, versus someone who is actively dating and that person is not responding to them, or whatever the story is. So it really actually does make a difference whether you are single, currently dating, married, potentially getting divorced. It really makes a difference which stage of life you're in, so to say. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then actually, this is a perfect transition, because to piggyback off of that, what role would you say that numerology and or astrology play into finding love?
Timing. I think that it can help someone kind of get an idea of when this could happen. And in some Vedic astrology, I mean, it can be down to like the day. They really can get it to that space. However, um, you know, um, there's a lot of astrologers that predict things, and there's a lot of numerologists that can predict things, and it's kind of like a hit or miss. I think 80% of some of these predictions never come true, and then they just kind of move on quickly. You know what I mean? So for me, and the work I do, it's never about predicting. we don't do predictions. That's Cracker Jack Psychic does predictions. I don't do predictions. I channel what I feel is best for you. And I can use numerology and astrology to kind of see like, if it's like a match. Like sometimes I'll go there and be like, see, like your numbers are saying exactly what I feel. And so it's almost validation for me to kind of do that for a client or use that. And that's more numerology. Astrology, I'm not really an astrologer, so I don't know much about it. But I would say that, I think it's fun. Like people who are really into astrology and they kind of base their life around it and the best days to do things. Sure, I think there's no harm in that, unless it's stopping you from moving forward. But if it's something that is helping people feel more confident moving forward, then I think it's wonderful. And so, yay, study it and live by it all you want, as long as it's not hindering anything, you know.
Absolutely. And I loved your phrase that you said, the Cracker Jack psychics. But what I will say is for the Cracker Jack clients who maybe are a bit skeptical and don't believe, numerology is something you can actually look up yourself for
Yeah.
those viewers. It's based on your day of birth, the year. Some of the online, sites that you're looking up will ask your birth time and the location, but when you teach, it's the day and the year. And I actually find numerology, like I believe in astrology, yes, but numerology I find really pinpoints your true personality. I found in my experience. So yeah, I didn't even think about that. We don't actually typically talk about astrology when we work together, but the numerology, like I said, is something you can look up yourself and your own birthday and year if it's something you wanted to research before.
Yeah,
Delving in.
absolutely. And you can just figure out simply research how to find out your personal year, and then you can kind of see what the year holds for you or the energy of it. And I agree. For me, I studied numerology because I just felt like a real connection to it as a modality, and there's a lot of truth in it, and I kind of really like numbers, so it just kind of clicked for me.
I actually didn't think about numbers until I started doing my own research and then until I met you. But I'm normally not a numbers person. I shy away from numbers. But the universe really, and you can speak to this more, really communicates in numbers. And as someone who is open to this process, the more you look around, license plates, addresses, the more you find the universe actually speaking to you. And so that can help guide you too if it's something you're not sure about. Those little signs can maybe help you believe in the process a bit more too, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think in my experience, and I think most people's experiences in life, even people who don't know numerology, they'll always say, "Oh, I see 222 all the time," or "I see 111," or "This series of numbers pops up in the craziest ways all of the time." And yeah, the universe is math. It's mathematical equation, the whole thing. And so numbers are just an easy way to receive signs from the universe. It's just a very simple, easy way. So yeah, you can always ask for a sign and then kind of wait for your number if you have one.
Right. Okay, so if let's say a client's reading isn't happening the way it was described, or for example, they attend an event that you suggested and they don't meet the person that you had mentioned, is it because it wasn't the right time, or is there maybe another reason?
I would say there could be a couple different factors in that situation. First thing I would say is that, regardless of what people may think, this work is really sensitive, and it's a little intense when it comes to actually being able to do it and to channel and to really kind of truthfully receive these messages. It's not something that can be just turned on and off, and the people that are doing it are human. So sometimes can, kind of channels be crossed and someone can feel something for someone and then it actually doesn't come true. I think, yeah, that can happen. or a scenario similar to what they say happens, and it's not exactly that. So I would say if it's like, oh, I feel you're going to this event, or there could be someone there. Again, timing, timing, timing. Sometimes, I could say, yes, oh, you're going to a wedding. It's got to be this one. But sometimes maybe it's not. Maybe it's one in the future, and that is when kind of like you give the message and you hope the timing is right, but you let them know that timing is difficult. And I think with you guys, I always say timing is tricky. It is. So I would say if you saw someone and something like that came up, that's a moment where you just keep it in the back of your head then. Just kind of keep it there somewhere, but don't start to kind of run your life based on that scenario. But I will say, again, my track record is pretty good. And even if something doesn't happen in the time that I think, usually I'll get something in the future being like, oh, it wasn't that, but it was this. And it made sense, so it might just make sense in the future.
Totally. What, switching gears a bit,
Yeah.
what is the difference between a soulmate and a twin flame?
In my experience, like they're similar. A soulmate is, in my mind, a pint of Ben and Jerry's. It just is satisfying and comfortable and nourishing and sweet. And it's a cozy blanket. It's your favorite movie. It's someone to be with who listens to you. A twin flame might be like, like red hots. Like there's magic, there's sparks, there's sexuality. It's a little more karmic. It really, twin flames kind of rev each other up in like that sacral area. So I'd say a higher threshold of passion. We can look at Romeo and Juliet or these types of kind of Hollywood, kind of images of lovers. And I would say a lot of them oftentimes will portray like a twin flame. And then like The Notebook, which is so cheesy, but it is one of my favorite movies, is a great example of like a soulmate.
And do you believe that a person can have multiple soulmates, speaking of numbers, or is it really one person?
Multiple.
Yeah.
Yeah, your parents could be, your mom could be a soulmate. People's dogs could be their soulmate. Your sister could be your soulmate. I mean, that's the thing. There's no, I don't think your sister could be a twin flame. I mean, maybe somewhere in the world, but not here. I mean,
Appalachia.
but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think soulmates come in so many different forms. And first and foremost, why I believe that we want to find our soulmate. Twin flames are fun, but they're very karmic and they can end with chaos. But soulmates are really that type of person you want to spend the rest of your life with. Your friends, best friends. And in my experience with relationships, in my own relationship, I met my best friend who also is my partner, and I think that is the best recipe because you just get each other and it's that you want to have that comfort. You don't want to always feel like you have to put on a show around someone or be someone that you're not to impress them or be hypersexual so that you can satisfy the passion. You just want to like sit on the couch with your pajamas and eat the Ben and Jerry's.
And not get kidnapped.
And not get kidnapped, hopefully.
Wow, I love the food comparison.
Yeah.
That was such I've never heard it put in those terms before, but for anyone who's not sure, that was a great example.
Thank you. I
Awesome.
think I just kind of made that up as I was
No,
going in my
I
mind,
love
but I
that.
think it works. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. I'll be sure to keep that in mind next time I'm going grocery shopping.
Yeah.
And by the way,
Yes.
hello, Ben and Jerry's. I think we need to create a new flavor here.
Seriously, yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
Okay, so do you have any general advice for those who are looking for love?
I think that someone who is looking for a relationship, looking for love, the first piece of advice is be open to failing and be open to going through a couple different people. I think that dating is a muscle. and for many people, in order to be their authentic truth and their authentic self, and that is what a soulmate would really feed off of. Sometimes it takes warming up. Sometimes we have to go on a couple dates or, date a bunch of people to the point where we get comfortable and we can be vulnerable. And I would say vulnerability is really important. And if you're having an issue with that and you can't be vulnerable, then how can you expect someone to be vulnerable with you? You're going to get exactly what you put out. And so sometimes you have to kind of go through the ringer of bad, quote unquote, dates. So you warm up that muscle, you can get in the flow and the energy of dating so that you are kind of sitting in that space. And it's, I think, easier for then people to kind of walk by you and energetically feel like, oh, she's attractive. I don't know why. Sometimes people just feel like because that person's been putting themselves out there a lot and that they're almost more attractive, that there's something enigmatic about their energy, because they've broken through the boundaries of feeling uncomfortable on dates, which is never a comfortable thing really in the beginning. So get out of your comfort zone. If you don't feel vulnerable, then you need to practice vulnerability and practice being vulnerable in front of people. And so go on a lot of dates, even if you're like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go on the apps. I don't want to meet someone through the apps. I say, well, if you don't want to meet someone through the apps, how do you expect the universe to bring you someone if you're cutting off, one of the very few ways that people meet people nowadays? So you have to be open to all of that, because then you're saying, okay, universe, I want you to bring me him, bring me her, bring me them, but it can't happen this way, it can't happen that way. I'm not going to go here. I, won't date someone under 5'11", and then the universe is just like, well, I don't know what to tell you.
Right.
So you have to be open and you have to look at it like, do 20% of the work, and if that's dating or just meeting people, becoming vulnerable, then that kind of maybe what you have to do. Get yourself in the energy of it.
Absolutely. I say that in my coaching program too, that I
Yeah.
don't necessarily think that the dating apps are the be all end all, but I encourage my clients to go on as many dates as they can too. And absolutely, even if it's just practice.
Yeah.
And also, and I always say, you never know who you're going to meet. Even if it's not a romantic relationship, you just never know if it's going to be a friend, a doctor, someone who can write you a recommendation letter. Like, you just never know.
Yeah. And I always tell people, go on these dates, and do something fun so that you can leave the date at least and say, well, I wanted to take a pottery class and that's what we did,
Right.
like piggyback something else on it. I think it's always a good thing. Sitting across from one, like having a drink or eating is like so uncomfortable, go to a museum, go bowling, do something like engaging.
Yeah.
Because I think that it gets people out of their heads and you have a better opportunity to kind of see the vulnerability inside of yourself and that person by giving yourselves an activity.
I
I
agree
think.
too. And what would you say to those who maybe have trust issues, which is something I find in common with many of my clients? Different types of trust issues, let's say, but what advice would you give those who do suffer from trust issues?
Well, it's a kind of a gray area because sometimes people have trust issues because of trauma.
Right.
And depending on what type of trauma that they might have experienced in their life, and depending on if they're actually in therapy or doing healing around the trauma, sometimes, jumping into dates isn't the right thing. Like sometimes someone does have to kind of work on the most important relationship, which is the one they have with themselves. And so if you are really untrusting, and it's going to be difficult for you to navigate. So I would say self-heal, self-help, you know, practice some type of spiritual modality, meditate, do therapy or trauma healing, whatever it is. I think we have to work on ourselves. It's one thing I've realized, that when I let go of self-work, like everything starts crumbling, And so for me, it's still very important to take time out and work on myself, because you can have trust issues and they can kind of get better and then they can come back. It could be something you're always going to deal with. But sometimes just understanding that you are safe to get to know someone, you know, and that most people are smart enough to kind of pick someone that is safe, that who won't kidnap them, like me, right? Um, you know, I think it's experience will garner greater trust. You know, sometimes you have to kind of go through a lot of untrusting situations to finally get to trusting.
Or recognizing who you can trust.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think what you're saying is also part of that window where if you are giving someone a reading and you maybe don't see love quite yet, it's
Hmm.
because there is this gray area of what they need to work on first so that they can be even open enough to
Yeah,
bring love in, to bring that trust in.
exactly. Because here's why. And this is the truth. Choice is, you know, the basis of this planet and the matrix we're in. So much of it is choice. And even if you meet your soulmate, they're only going to take so much crap, you know? And so if you're really closed off and you're not giving someone anything and you're unhealed and unhinged and too reactory and, you know, selfish and all these other things, a soulmate's not just going to stick around and be like, oh, well, I guess my purpose is to help you heal through this. Absolutely not. They're going to leave. And maybe they'll run into their next soulmate or somebody else, you know? We can scare people away. Absolutely, that can happen, you know, especially in the first like couple weeks, you know, if you kind of are unhealed and you're not self-aware, at least self-aware, right? Somewhat self-aware, you can run into issues when it comes to a romantic partner because there are people out there that I'm sure are even more healed and grounded and nurtured than I am, you know what I mean, that I would learn from, you know, but those people don't stick around forever, you know? So I think it's important to know that if someone does come into your life, there is choice. You're not going to be stuck with that person forever for bad or good, good or bad, you know? You can always leave a negative situation. And that's the whole what's love got to do with it. There might be so much love there, but I think if you have self worth and self respect, you'll leave someone you love to find someone who loves you and who might treat you better.
Absolutely. So when you working with new clients in particular, do you find that love might be like extremely common, if not the most common topic of your sessions?
Um, I think that in the world of spirituality and spiritual healing, self love is the key to everything. Everything is love because it's who and what we are. It's just the building blocks of our energy is love. But no, actually, it's not the quick go to because I think people sometimes are scared of self love. You know, they're ready to love other people, but they're not ready to really love themselves yet. And so when I kind of go there, some people clam up. It's like, oh, let's talk about career. A career and life purpose is big, you know, especially here in LA. And I was living in New York too. So I think the coast's all about like my career. Am I going to be famous? Is my book going to get published? It's a lot of that, right? It's actually less when it comes to love. I think it's something that everyone like wants to talk about, but it seems like my life purpose is more important, and that's what people really want to focus on, specifically now. However, within that type of reading, sometimes people are a part of your purpose. And then when a soulmate comes in, they're a part of your bigger purpose. They help you grow. They help you be successful or become successful or realize you're successful in all aspects of your life, you know? Um, and so I think that it just bleeds right in. Like, sure, I see a book being published, let's say, but it's going to come through this great relationship that I feel is going to come first. And they're like, oh no, I want my book to be published first. I'm like, well, I don't know. I feel that there is a relationship that's going to help you do that, you know? And so it can come in that way for a lot of people. But yeah, most people want to know about their life purpose, life path. I think love scares some people, especially people who are kind of closed off to it. You know how many people I've done work with where I'm just simply like, Say something is, like close your eyes, let's do an exercise, and just tell yourself you love you. Just guide them through some affirmations of self love. And I mean, the waterworks happen within like a minute, a second, because I think people don't do that.
Well, and that's also why there's so many single people because
Well,
how can you be in a relationship with someone else if you don't even love yourself? Or maybe you can, but then it's like putting a square peg in a round hole.
yeah, it's difficult, and then there are people who might not be in a place of self love, but they meet someone who really allows them to meet themselves for the first time, like a soulmate. It's like they come in and they show you who you really are, and sometimes it's a beautiful energy, and sometimes it's like shocking, and you're like, oh wow, I have to do work on myself, But I think that um, relationships are completely intertwined with purpose on so many levels. And they have to be.
Yeah.
Because who wants to waste their time, endlessly dating? Maybe, there are people out there who just enjoy that, and not everyone wants to be in a real relationship. I don't know that that's meant for everyone, because I've met many of people, they're just not into it. It's not something that they need. They don't crave that. And so they'll jump from person to person and be totally fine, at least on the outside, so I think it's just everyone has different needs. And so whatever that need is kind of what rules your roost.
Do you think that maybe career life path is such a common question because it's a bit more in that person's control than a relationship, because you can't control necessarily the person that you're with, but you can control the choices you make in terms of your career?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because for many people, it is an easier concept, because people can know that, oh, I'm a mess in relationships, but I'm really good at my life path, or I'm on my path, I feel, and I love my career, but I need some help or guidance in that space, but that's my wheelhouse. And so with those people, if you bring up love, you get the wall. The wall comes right up, and they're like, nope, don't really want to talk about. And I say those particular energies need the most kind of self-love work. But yeah, it's an easier topic, because yeah, relationships are out of our control, and you really can't control who loves you or who wants to be around you. The only thing that you can do is be the best version of yourself, and hope that that's enough, and it should be.
Absolutely. Okay, so do you have any upcoming projects that you'd like to promote? And also separately, just to kind of piggyback on everything we were talking about, what would you tell someone who is skeptical of this type of practice?
Um, Book a session. I mean,
Try it.
try it out. There's many people who are skeptical, and they book sessions, and they're like, oh, I didn't think it'd be like this. It's real. I think people who are skeptical never really experienced kind of the real thing, you know. And so when someone is experiencing the real thing, the truth speaks, and the truth has wings. And so if you're actually delivering the truth of who you are, people really can't help but see it as truth, you know. And so I'd say, just if you don't believe this, what did you do, or who did you talk to, or where did you experience that might have been false? And know that there are a lot of people out here who really do have gifts, and who really are in a position to help you in that way if you seek it and if you desire that. So I always say the proof is in the pudding. You just experience it for yourself and then make a judgment.
Okay.
And as far as like things, yeah, so I teach retreats. So I'm doing a retreat to Greece, actually, June 1st through 8th, 2024. And it's going to be a yoga and adventure wellness retreat. There's going to be a 2-hour workshop about how to connect to your divine feminine self, which can kind of piggyback some of what we're talking about here. Sound healing experiences, yoga, excursions. It's going to be a really cool experience. I do another retreat in Sicily, just came back from that. I'm doing Sicily again in 2024. And I recently actually published a book It's on Amazon right now. It's 122 Days of Joy, and it's a journal slash workbook on how to cultivate joy and gratitude in your daily life. And so you can find that on Amazon under Bene, which is my kind of my spiritual name and my business name.
I love that. Who doesn't want 122 days of joy?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And 122 is totally my spirit numbers. So just to piggyback why
From your birthday?
No, just 122 has always been like the numbers that spirit guides me through. It's just always been that. So I was like, when I was thinking of a title, and I was like, well, how many days? I'm like, well, it has to be 122. I have to use that number. So
Totally. And I'm sure I'm going to start seeing that on clocks now.
probably.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, is there anything else you wanted to say or share? Any mantras or quotes or anything before we wrap up?
Yes.
And also, not to interrupt you, but if anything is coming through at this moment too that's coming to you, feel free to share.
Okay. Well, let me say this: that love is very often not a feeling, but an expression. Love is oftentimes not what we think it is. Love is a gray area, period. It's not like what we see in the movies. It's not that. It's not very sustainable as a feeling to always feel that way. So we don't always have to go for the love in relationships. We can go for the connection. We can go for the likability factor. We can go for just things that we have in common. If you have a lot in common with someone, you really can share your life with that person. And sometimes love is something that is the undercurrent of everything. And so I would say if you think that you're not finding love, maybe redefine what you think love is. Because it is not like having butterflies in your stomach every day, all day for someone. Maybe in the beginning, but that definitely fades. And so I think that's important. And the other thing is a wonderful affirmation I tell my clients who are in a position where they want to seek love, but it's not coming in for them, or they want a relationship, it's not coming. I always say, well, until it comes, then what you're going to do is every morning you're going to look in the mirror and you're just going to say to yourself, I love and approve of you, or I love and approve of myself for exactly who I am now. And cultivate that sense of love. Because when someone asks me, I want to find love, sometimes I give them like, well, you already are love, so next, it's already there. It's not something to find, it's something to be and remember, And so if I can give you a type of channeled message, if I can kind of collectively, I would say there's a lot of people out there that crave chaotic relationships, and they don't trust if it's too simple or if it's too easy. People crave the chaos. They crave the excitement in relationships. And the issue with that is it's not sustainable. And so those that create or crave the chaotic relationships will get those chaotic relationships. But those are sometimes karmic and they're not lasting. And so trust the simplicity of partnership. Because just like spirit, and what spirit likes to say is, I'm simple. Spirit is a very simple energy. It's complex in a lot of ways, but it just runs on a very simple idea, and that idea is love. It's a benevolent, loving force. And it's just simple in that. And so if you crave the drama and you're constantly bringing in drama, you need to check that at the door and start to connect to the more simple people, the grounded people, right? The people that maybe you would look over, right? Sometimes that's where it is for you. So don't be afraid to actually go for the opposite of what you normally go for, And spirit brings us up because, spirit is helping us. They are guiding us. They are bringing people. People are divine in many aspects, so we have to meet certain people in this lifetime. But we can F it up, excuse my French, you know what I mean? So they try to get everyone probably listening to this to understand that spirit can't go into your mind and create a new personality. Spirit, it cannot do that. That's your, that's part of your pact, is that you will get out of your own way so that spirit can take over. So all those people listening that crave that dramatic relationship, that crave the intensity, that like twin flame energy, that's great. But oftentimes that doesn't lead to where the path that you want. And so be more simple. Find the more simple, easy relationship, the one that doesn't need work, the person that calls you back, the person that texts you back, the person that actually wants to be in your life.
Where you're not left confused.
Yes.
Yeah, and just to step in, just to kind of side note here, I would say that most of those who are craving the chaos, A, don't know that they're craving chaos, but B, it's because they maybe grew up around chaotic relationships. And so even though you enter relationships saying, I want nothing like my childhood was, if you had a chaotic, hectic, yelling, whatever you want to say, childhood, what it is you're subconsciously bringing in what's familiar. The familial relationships, even if it's not healthy, it feels like home because it's what you're used to. And that combined with, if you bring in the chaotic relationship subconsciously, your mind wants to change the narrative, because even though you can't fix what went on in your childhood, you can fix it now as an adult. So that's something to be mindful of if you are someone who finds yourself craving or often in chaotic relationships, like you said, where you don't know where you stand. Maybe you're not treated well, not treated with respect. That it's because subconsciously you're trying to change the outcome of what you couldn't fix from where you were as a kid. So, moral of the story, go for that Ben and Jerry's relationship.
Yes, that's the moral of the story. That's the right one. That's a soulmate. That's what they feel like. And you would be very happy that you chose that path and you went for that. And I see many people, to just give my one last 2 cents, choose the opposite. I see people choose the wrong person or go back into the chaotic relationship. Well, maybe this one will be different. Or, a lot of my clients who are healers, they have the whole, well, I want the sparrow that's with the broken wings. I want to nurture them back to health. I want to be the one to heal them. And that's just a recipe for disaster. And so self-awareness, we go back to that. If you feel like you can't hold relationships or you have toxic relationships, stop. It's like stop, drop, and roll. Like just stop.
Yeah.
Pull yourself back. Do some inner work. Become self-aware. Once you're aware of your patterns, it's then easy to break them, and start to let in the right people. And that's kind of the name of the game in a way.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I think that about wraps it up for us. But thank you so much for such an informative episode. Like I said, I'm so excited and honored to have you. Truly,
Oh.
I think this is such a important topic and very relevant to my program and your program as well. And so I'm so grateful for your time. So thank you, James.
Oh, Vanessa, thank you.
All right, that about wraps up episode 2. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.